All right. Well, first off, good morning, or first off, good afternoon, everybody. Um, Welcome to our sort of weather chat here for this winter weather um, system that's going to be approaching here in Indiana. And so I figured I'd go ahead and give a talk a little bit about that today or this afternoon to kind of get you guys prepared and ready to go for that. So let's kind of jump right in to that real quickly. Let me kind of get off of that and go straight to the models here. First and foremost, yes, in case of you have been living under a rock, we are expected to have a winter weather system come into the state of Indiana here tonight. Basically, I'll be talking a little bit about the timeline here very shortly, but that's kind of what we're expecting tonight and into tomorrow morning, and so I'll break down that timeline here shortly. But let's take a look at the models. First and foremost, I want to talk a little more about the precipitation type that's coming in and kind of the timeline in between that there. So what we're looking at right now is a model. We call it the HRR model or HRRR model, or what I call is HER model. Essentially, it's a high resolution model that gives us a little bit more data that's a little bit more exact and a little bit more specific versus, say, like other models out there, which is a little bit more general. This gives us a little bit more specific timeline here. So all these times, by the way, if you take a look at this is through what we call Pivotal Weather. It's a website that allows us to see the weather models. But anyways, the time here is in Central Time. So those of you who are in Southern Indiana and also maybe in parts of Northern Indiana, you might be on this right timeline here. But if you're in Central and most parts of Indiana, this is just an hour. We're just an hour behind, but either way, it still kind of gives us a good idea of what's going on here. But let's kind of take a little look into more of the future here, kind of going more towards the evening hours. This is right around 11 o'clock Eastern time here in Central Indiana, but 10 o'clock in Central time. But you can take a look. There's going to be some rain in southern Indiana. If you look at Evansville, Indiana, you can see there's going to be some rain starting to show up a little bit there. And then as we progressively move through the evening or the late evening hours, you're going to see right around midnight here in central Indiana, still nothing. But rain starts to creep in again in southern Indiana and keeps creeping in until about 1, 2 o'clock the Eastern time in Indiana, and that's when you're going to start to see some south central parts of Indiana starting to transition a little bit into snow. And then eventually, as we move towards the 3 a.m. area, and again Eastern time in central Indiana, you're going to start to see some snow showers falling. And then as we continue to transition even further, more into the morning hours, you're going to see that the snow is going to stick with most of central Indiana and also northwestern parts of Indiana as well. You can kind of see that up there towards Lafayette area, Rensselaer, Gary, all of those areas up here are going to be experiencing some snow. And then as we progressively go through the rest of the morning hours, this is 5 o'clock Eastern Standard or Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Central Time. You're going to start to see that kind of continue and progress through. Now, as you can tell, in southern Indiana, it's going to continue to kind of stay relatively rainy for the most part. There might be a little bit of mixing in there, but overall, we're going to experience some rain and a little bit of mixing down there, but mostly snow showers throughout most of the state of Indiana. Now, as we go into 7 and 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, you're going to start to see that the snow is going to start to taper off and start to push towards the east. And you'll continue to see that kind of taper off eventually around the 9, 10 o'clock hours, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. And we might see a little bit of remnants of snow showers going through the rest of Saturday into Sunday. And you'll kind of notice and understand what's kind of going on there. So that is kind of the story, at least according to the HER model. But if we take ourselves and go look at the European model, which again is very, very similar to, or very a little bit, it's very accurate as well as the HER. We progressively go through the rest, again, kind of going through the hours here. This is right around 1 o'clock in the morning. kind of see the same thing here, kind of seeing snow showers kind of forming. They're expecting maybe a little bit more snow pushing more south with the European model. But then by again 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, the snow will progressively taper off. So again, you can kind of see those the a little bit of what the models are predicting there and kind of how that's going there. So let's first off kind of go from that to kind of my discussion that I wanted to really quickly kind of talk about here. And I'm sure some of you might be making some comments here. I'll be getting to that here shortly. So kind of just be patient a little bit there. But a little bit of winter weather. Here's kind of again the timeline that I wanted to talk about as well. You'll notice again, this is all in Eastern time. So those of you who are in the southern parts of the state or northern parts of the state kind of understand that these will be just an hour behind you for your timeline. But from around 10, 11 o'clock to about 2 a.m., rain enters the southern southwestern parts of the state. It'll then transition from 2 to 4 a.m. We'll see that systems push more north eastern eastwards, and as that happens, you're going to start to see some snow transitioning to or rain transitioning to snow, particularly in the central and southeastern parts of the state. You'll see snow being produced in the northwestern parts of the state as well. Between 4 and 8 a.m., we're going to see snow continuing pretty much throughout over much of the state. Uh, Again, staying with either some rain or mixing of rain in the southern parts of the state. A heavier band, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. A heavier band is going to actually sit over, I would say, along the I-74 corridor. So going from north to south, pretty much that's kind of where you're going to be seeing more of the heavier snow, at least what I would call the more heavier amounts of snow setting up there. And then by 8 to 10 o'clock, we're going to start to see the snow exiting out of the state. And by 10 a.m., it should be fairly out of the state by that point, if not 11, 12 o'clock, again, Eastern time. So that's kind of the timeline that we expect to see the snow kind of, the winter system kind of entering and exiting the state. It's going to be a quick one for the most part. Again, starting late tonight and then going into early to mid morning tomorrow before it tapers off completely. Again, the kind of the way the system's going to set up, it's going to start from the southwest and going to move northeastwards, and then push kind of more towards the east, especially in the morning hours, and kind of drift off. And I'll show you in a minute kind of where and actually we'll transition to that really quickly, kind of showing you guys a little bit of a more kind of out nationally a little bit, kind of seeing the let's kind of look a little bit more regional, shall we? So let's kind of look more at the Ohio Valley because this is kind of the focus of where we're going to be at. So if you'll notice, as we push forward, and I'm trying to see if I can find any pressure readings on this. Maybe I can find the pressure readings on that. Maybe not so much. Um, Anywho, we'll just kind of take it forwards here really quickly. So you'll notice the low pressure system is actually kind of more towards the south here, and if we press through, you're going to see again the low pressure system's actually centered down here and kind of more in this area here. When it comes to low pressure systems, what we usually do is we notice that it rotates what we call counterclockwise. And so what happens is that as this low pressure system is going to move northeast, what we're doing is we're getting the wraparound. And now this is it's fairly strong, but for us it's kind of weak because of the fact that we're not as close to the low as we would want. If we were a little bit more closer to the low and with our temperatures, we'd probably see a lot more snow. But because we're a little bit farther out from the low pressure system, we're going to see a little bit of snow, but not as much as what you would think. So again, that kind of shows us a little bit more of where that low pressure system is. Again, the center's here. You're going to see a lot of winds rotating around here counterclockwise, and that's where we get what we call wraparound snow from this. If the temperatures were a little bit higher up and the low pressure was up, we'd see a lot more rain. But because of the temperatures are sitting where they're at, we're going to be seeing more snow than anything. So let me kind of head back here and kind of show a little bit more of what again I'm kind of talking about here. So this is kind of the snowfall forecast that I'm predicting through tomorrow afternoon around 3 p.m. Now, based off of all the model data and based off of the temperatures that I've seen, and kind of the climate that I've noticed, especially here in Indiana, I kind of based off of these measurements through all of that information. A lot of people think, oh, hey, you just read off of something and that's it. No, when it comes to true meteorology, we look at other factors, including climate, and especially if we have lived in the state for a long period of time, that we're used to understanding how the state interacts. And I know for certain, especially in central Indiana, the I-70 or I-70 corridor is kind of the kind of division line when it comes to snow, and it always has been that way. We're not sure exactly why that is, but that's just kind of how it's always been. And so what we do is we look at the I-74, I-70 corridor, and we take a look at where the temperatures are at, and right around this area here, where you have Indianapolis area, just a little bit farther south, maybe towards a little bit south of Greenwood, you're going to get more of that temperature line where you're going to get the freezing, particularly at the surface, freezing of the precipitation. And so that's kind of that division line where you're going to see some mixing and freezing of that. And of course, up in the upper atmosphere, we already know it's freezing. At this point, it's already freezing. However, closer to the surface is where it's really important. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here. And based off of my information, this is kind of what that I've looked at. This is kind of what I've been predicting. So pretty much, if you're in southern Indiana, at least in the southwestern parts of the state, you're going to see mostly rain, maybe perhaps a trace of snow. Highly doubt that. You might see a little bit more of a trace, maybe around the Lagodi area, maybe Bedford area, Bloomington area. You might start to see a little bit of mixing of snow in those areas. As we move farther north, you're going to start to see a little bit more of, I would say, maybe a trace, a half inch of snow, in between a half inch and maybe an inch of snow on the ground. And then as we move again more northwestern, you're going to start to see kind of that embedded there, half inch to kind of inch of snow overlapping here right around the Indianapolis area. And then eventually you'll kind of get it to see a band. And I'm predicting kind of more of a band, probably from the southeastern part of the state up to, again, I-74 corridor up here. We're going to see, oh, I apologize, I'm there. We're going to see basically that band going upwards from there up north, and you're going to see some heavier snow showers right along, I would say, that area, just slightly above the temperature line. And then that'll kind of move up just a little bit north, maybe around the Muncie area, maybe a little bit farther north. And then you're going to see again a transition to another about half inch to inch of snow or so. So those are kind of my predictions that I've noticed based upon the data that I have seen and kind of how things work here in Indiana, and kind of how the system is progressing. And it kind of makes sense. You can kind of see that northwestern push of the system. And so it does make sense kind of based off of that, kind of what we're looking at there. So these are kind of my predictions here based off the data. And again, do I expect a lot of snow with this? Absolutely not. Again, we're not super close to the pressure system to where we won't see as much, but we will definitely be getting a good amount. We're actually going to see more amounts of snow, more, I would say, in the Illinois area. They're going to see a little bit more heavier bands of snow, and that's just because the system's going to push a little bit more northward. And with the temperatures and how they're situated out, they're going to be seeing a lot more snow above in that area there. So that's kind of what we expect there. But so basically, the northwestern counties are going to see more of the snow just because of the temperature and kind of how the temperatures lie out. And again, how far it sticks around. And then eventually it'll kind of go out of our state. So again, that's kind of what my predictions are. Now, say if you're traveling in that timeline area, just to kind of go over really quickly some weather safety. Again, if you're traveling during this area in this area, I do expect some slicky roads because of the fact that we're so going to be so close to 32 degrees. I do expect that we're going to see a lot more wet snow, and that is, I would think, the more treacherous snow versus the more drier snow. And so, with that being said, I expect a lot of roads becoming slick, especially when they start to become snow covered. Especially on ramps and off ramps, I do expect those to be very slick. So if you're traveling on the interstate during those times, make sure you use caution. Give your enough room and enough time in between cars. Don't be too impatient because again, that can backfire on you. But say, for instance, if you do find yourself in a situation, make sure that your vehicle is equipped with a flashlight, first aid kit, necessary medications in case you take those, blankets, extra clothing, sack of sand, and small shovel in case if you need to get yourself out, booster cables in case if your battery is dead or something goes wrong with your car or vehicle, small tools, brightly colored cloths, bottled water, especially because if you're stranded out for a little bit, that might that might be kind of a big deal, especially if you're on a country road. And then before you travel, again, make sure you avoid driving till the roads are safe and passable. Again, with the amount of snow we're getting, I don't see too much of an issue, but again, things can get very slick very easily. Even with a trace of snow on the ground, it can get very slick. I can get crazy. Always winterize your vehicle. If you haven't done so already, please do so. It's already gotten cold, and do a thorough inspection of your vehicle before you kind of take off with things. So that's kind of what I wanted to kind of go over with you guys. Basically, really quickly, kind of giving you an update on that. Before I kind of basically hang loose here, I want to or kind of let you guys loose. I want to real quick see if there are any comments that are being put on here. It looks like there hasn't been any comments on here, but again, I figured I'd go ahead and get on kind of Facebook Live and talk a little bit about what's going to be happening in the next 12 to 12 hours or so, maybe 24 hours or so, just kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen. Again, I don't expect too much snow in the way of snow, but it definitely will become it'll definitely become a hazard, especially if you're traveling during that timeline. So, if anything, if you're not traveling, if you're staying home, enjoy the snowfall, especially with our first full true winter system coming through. This will be nice, but it is a very active week that's coming up here shortly. So, not only are we going to talk about this winter system, but also we're going to be talking about other winter systems as well coming through specifically for next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe into the next weekend or so. So, crazy thing, we didn't get snow for Christmas, but looks like after the holidays, things are starting to ramp up with our patterns. So, continue to stick it with us here at America's Weather Streaming Channel, and check us out again online at our YouTube page as well. Just search America's Weather Streaming Channel, and you'll be able to find us on there. Also, check out our actual website as well. If you actually love hearing all these weather updates, please make sure if you really like those updates, subscribe to us, and you'll get personalized weather forecasts sent to you every single day. And especially if there's any weather events, you're going to get multiple emails every single day on those things, along with direct contact with a reliable meteorologist on board. So, if you're interested in that, you can either email us here or you can go to our website and find out more about that. So, anyways, I figured I'd give you guys an update on that. So, you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. And if there's any more things that I need to update with, I'll come online. Or if you visit our YouTube page tonight, we'll probably have a live stream going on of the winter weather event. So, anyways, you guys take care of a wonderful rest of your day and your evening, and stay safe, stay warm, and again, stick with us right here on America's Weather Streaming Channel for more updates. Take care to all of you.